guys, we're very excited for today's show, and we'll catch up with Keith Smith after his presentation with Ned Galloway to City Council.
We were joking about it after, and you and a bunch of other people sitting up and were asking me how the bromance is going between Ned and I. But, yeah, it was a great presentation. Thank you for watching. I was flattered. I'm flattered.
The first City Council meeting without Ceda McGill, Keith.
First one without Ceda McGill. So the way the city does it, which is I actually really like it. They kind of do their work sessions presentations before the actual meeting gets started. So it's more like a work session environment. So it's a little bit more relaxed and some questions going back and forth. But all the city councils asked a ton of questions, which was a good thing. So they were engaged in it. And today, Ned and I are doing Fulvana County, same roadshow. We're talking regional housing partnership and housing affordability, and that may be a different room.
I love it. So when the show starts, you guys will also see our very good friend Scott Morris, and he's brought along for a second rodeo Japrecia Terrell Clark. She's in the house as well. We'll talk all things real estate, all things market, all things interest rates. Scott, I believe last Wednesday you were not here, so you were missed, my friend.
Thank you, thank you.
And Judah Wickower, of course, is our director. Judah, we can rock and roll when you are ready, sir.
Here we go. Makes me feel like I'm a little bit tall when I do this. As opposed to this, I'm like, here we go.
All right, here we go. Good Wednesday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk with Keith Smith. Thank you kindly for joining us. It's great to connect with you guys through the I Love Seville network. It's an aggregation of every social media platform alive today, and we encourage you, the viewer and listener, to participate with the show, shape the discussion, ask questions by posting them in the comments section of any of the platforms you're watching upon, and that literally will help influence what we discuss for the next hour and change here on Real Talk with Keith Smith. Today's show is presented by Ross Mortgage and Scott Mortgage Morris.
Good morning, good morning.
He's looking quite sharp. This is the first time I've seen him, if we can go to the four-shot, Judah Wickower, who is our director. The first time I've seen you wear the Ross Mortgage shirt and a navy on this show.
Thank you.
Is that a new one?
I don't know if it's a new one or if I just found it in my closet.
Okay, maybe that's what it was. He's looking sharp. Keith Smith's always looking sharp, but
Thank you, sir.
Keith, you can wait a second. We need to go to Japrecia.
Sure.
We'll go to Japrecia first, and then we'll go to Keith of Real Talk with Keith Smith.
I'll shut up.
Japrecia, the show is yours. Your second rodeo, realtor with Nest Realty. Introduce yourself to everybody that's watching.
I'm Japrecia Clark. I'm with Nest Realty. I have been in real estate for about 10 years now. Prior to that, I was on the financial side, the lending side of things for a little bit. And I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me back.
It's our pleasure, Keith.
Can I talk now?
You can.
Okay,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Remember, Real Talk with Keith Smith.
I know. Executive producer.
Executive.
Keith Smith.
Just saying. So, Pri, welcome back. I've been allowed to call you Pri, so
Yes.
thank you for doing that. As Jerry was introducing you, I was thinking, how cool is it to have a nickname? My nickname, the only possible version of my first name is Keithy. And there's only one person that calls me that. Actually,
mom.
two persons.
Well, that might be TMI right there.
Yeah, it's
That might be a little TMI.
My mommy would be
Why
one.
your mom
My
was
mother
one,
would be
yeah.
one. And now my 2-year-old granddaughter is now switched from Pop Dad to Keithy.
But you
So
still have Pop Dad.
I still have Pop Dad.
I like
Yeah,
that.
that's a great one.
Yeah, so they
I've not
were,
heard that.
because my daughters call me Dad and my grandpa name is Pop. And the little brains just said, you know what, put it together.
It's
and
beautiful.
Pop
There
Dad.
you go. So welcome on board. Welcome.
Thank you.
Excited to sit down again and chat all kinds of stuff real estate. So where would you want to kick off today, Scott?
Well, today the big news is the producer price index came in significantly below, kind of signaling a flare that inflation may have peaked. The U.S. 10-year Treasury loves it. The bond market in general loves it. Mortgage rates. If you're somebody out there who hasn't locked a loan, go do it. Because who knows what the rest of the week or next week's going to bring. But right now, we're trending in the right direction.
Let's make that the first sizzle reel and make sure we get that out today because it is timely. It pertains to data released this morning in the 8 o'clock hour. So inflation potentially peaked. Potentially. This is another KPI that's indicating that perhaps it's peaked.
Yeah, this is basically saying that as far as future from the Fed, they're going to continue. I think we're going to see at least one more 25, if not two more 25 basis point increases to the Fed rate, and then a pause. And they're finally going to sit back and go, okay, what has what we've already done caused in the markets? Because it's there's a lag to that. They swing a blunt instrument, and we're gonna I think hopefully see the results that they were looking for. I still think we potentially face a recession, and if you look at most of the charts, when I've talked over and over and over again about national jobless reports, you typically don't see joblessness increase until they're done a rate hike cycle. So part of that is companies that are waiting to see the effects and then how they adjust for the future cast for the rest, their forecast for the rest of the year, or going into the incoming year. So I think that's where we start to see layoffs going into the summer and possibly the fall. But again, all of those things, as disappointing as they are going to be good for mortgage rates in general. So, and we live in a very blessed area. So when I talk about people losing jobs, I don't necessarily mean here. And look at your big production areas of the country. That's where you're going to see the majority of that happening.
Microsoft just announced some layoffs.
Yeah,
but
the tech industry has been having that's been an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
But they overhired during the pandemic, and now they're dealing with the repercussions of that.
10,000 layoffs from Microsoft. Keith Smith is exactly right. Another round of layoffs. Keith Smith follows the news closely. That would be the end of the first sizzle reel, what Scott just did. Let's get Pri in the mix.
Yes, definitely. I wanted Pri's perspective on this because you kind of wear two hats, right?
Yes, she does.
You come from the financing world and you're a professional in real estate. So what you thinking?
I'm sticking to what I said the last time. I think things are going to look up for buyers. I actually put something out on my feed yesterday, information that National Association of Realtors actually posted in an article about 2 weeks ago from Lawrence Young that, it's not a repeat from 2008, and jobs were one of the reasons that it's not. Like the percentage is down from 2008 to now. Mortgage delinquencies as well as down, foreclosure rate is down, and subprime lending, all of that looks different. So I'm still staying optimistic with the direction that things are going. I mean, this is great news that Scott is sharing, with the rest of the world this morning. Again, to just stay positive because for buyers, it's going to work. It's going to work.
So since the last time you joined us, how's your tempo looking, right? How is your tempo of business?
Has the spring market sprung for you?
Yes.
It has?
It has.
Okay.
I have, in the last few weeks, 7 listings, 6 are under contract already.
Damn.
And I got 3 more over the weekend.
That's legit.
So it's a lot of sellers, again, which means I have buyers that are coming to the market. And typically, I'm a buyer's agent. I'm a little bit more busier on the buyer side of things. But since the pandemic market has kind of slowed down, things have kind of flipped a little bit.
Well, we're going to jump into a little bit of that because there's a posting I did yesterday, and I asked you to actually put it up on the screen. But I do want to jump back to Scott. We talked a little bit about off-air before we went in, and it's one of the questions I've always asked you. How's your applications going, right? How is because you're like really we're the leading edge on actually listings and talking to buyers and stuff like that. But once it makes it to you, an application process, that's kind of where I think the rubber meets the road. So how you looking there?
So prior to Christmas, we kind of went through a little bit of a lag as far as applications. That Christmas to New Year's, I had a ton of people who must have sat around and decided what is looking like a real estate investor look like for us, and I don't know, some of them were qualified. None of them were, let's go out and execute on something right away. And then in the last 2 weeks, we've had a major uptick in activity, specifically related to people who are qualified, ready, and let's go.
Well,
It's awesome. It's awesome.
I'm just looking at the 10-year Treasury yield. It's down to 3.3.
Yes, which means that means Treasury itself is up. People are buying into it, driving down the yield.
You got a lot of bullish data on set today. You got home builder sentiment rising this month in January for the first time in over a year. The sentiment and the rise, which is positive, is being attributed to lower mortgage rates. So a lot of positive data points here. Pri is extremely popular. And she's getting props from people left and right. Natasha Anderson is giving you some love right now. She says, keep crushing it. You're getting love from Bonnie De Silva, Elizabeth Simpson, Crystal Orange, Neil Simpson, Cam Williams, Roland Tibbs. Giving Pri some props right now. Joseph Collins, welcome to the program. I count 8 real estate firms in 3 states on the show right now. Do you see the positivity heading throughout the rest of this first quarter?
So that's what I did on the posting yesterday, like what the what. And I was really excited about hearing what you two guys think about it. I have my own opinion about what the what, but just in the car footprint, week over week, this last 7 days versus the same 7 days in 2022, and this number really surprised me. We have put in the car footprint, Charlottesville Area Association Realtors footprint, 91 homes under contract in the last 7 days. That same 7 days in 22, when interest rates was 3%, 3.5%, was 66. That's a 27% increase, if I did my math right, on that end of it. What's the what? What do you think's driving that?
I do feel like the spring market, for the markets that I cover, I want to be clear, the market that I cover, because every market could be different. I do feel like sellers are anxious to see what their opportunities are, so they're a little bit more anxious about getting their properties on the market sooner. They don't want to miss the boat. They want the buyer to see it. I think buyers just need a little bit more confidence with where rates are and understanding, it's still a good time to purchase. And the saying is out, I've heard it so many times, marry the house and date the rate. And so, they're just having to understand that a little bit more. But I think their confidence level is coming back up. And it's the fact that they're seeing more inventory hit the market. And I think as long as they see that, I think people will stay positive a little bit. Again, it's the market.
We prefer the term "get a trusted advisor" to tell you what's going on and
I've not used that term. I just kind of throw it out there that hey, this is
people use it.
Yes, they do. They do.
I get
they
it.
They do.
So what the what, Scott? What do you think? What's going on? Why are we 27% up? Same week over a year ago.
Because over a year ago, inventory had gotten absolutely smashed during 2020, especially the closing months. So everything that was coming on was coming immediately off. Whereas this year we had at least a little bit of a lag where we had some properties that were staying days on market. So then coming into this 2-week period, we're starting to see those properties. Get under contract at least.
So it's interesting. With one unit difference came on market year over year. So it was 54. The last 7 days was 53 the year ago.
I also think the market is not as sticker shocked with rates now.
That's exactly right.
Right.
Because we had through the third quarter of last year and into Q4 of last year, we had the national media just bombarding us with ridiculous commentary on rates, and now it's been months of in the 6s, and people are like, "Oh, we can do this."
They're listening to Real Talk with Keith Smith,
there you go.
Jerry Miller,
there you go.
And realize
that's exactly what it is.
And realize
exactly what it is.
That I know I just couldn't miss that opportunity. Realize that we're back to normal, right?
Right.
So
I mean, the grand scheme of things, 6% is still pretty damn good.
It is, and I've said this a couple of times. I've had a couple other speaking engagements. For me, this market is the way it was for me when I actually started in real estate, and people were still buying houses. It's just they had to get accustomed to what it was before. They were spoiled for 3 years, 2.5 years.
The difference, Pri, is this inventory struggle. Right, and these were questions the city councils was asking Ned Galloway and myself yesterday, and they were like, well, can we just build our way out of this? And that's a huge yes, right?
Well, Michael Payne, did you hear Michael Payne's comments?
Yeah, I know.
And I can't wait to highlight those comments.
I was standing right in front of him.
Neil Williamson, you're watching here, right? I see Neil Williamson. He's the president of the Free Enterprise Forum. Michael Payne straight up said we cannot build ourselves into affordability. Those were his exact words.
Yes, yes and maybe no yes. And in that environment, we don't have this hour and a half to go into a great conversation. But that's a step, right? These are multiple steps. And I said in my reply to him, you also got to clean up this red tape, right? Red tape has to turn into green tape in order to move forward. But if there's nothing to buy, right, and our inventory isn't growing and our pendings are growing, it's just, Econ 101. It's going to put pressure on it. So what do you think? Are you still sticking to your rates for something the end of this year?
Mm-hmm. I like that.
That's
with confidence and conviction. You're saying that.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
like it.
All right.
I mean, we're trending in that direction right now. Now, I think we're going to see, you'll see some hiccups as we hit those two 25 basis point hikes between. You'll see, a little bit more negative movement in the bond market, but I mean, that's just part of the volatility and part of what needs to happen, because I don't care what anybody says, as much as everybody was like, oh, we want rates in the fours right now. If you had rates in the fours right now, we'd be back into this situation where we put all these buyers back on the board with the limited amount of inventory that we have, and we'd be right back to multiple offer situations, driving affordability, out of the picture and making it difficult for everyone trying to purchase. So it needs to take its time in doing it, but we're headed in the right direction.
So
That's a second sizzle reel right there. There's the mortgage guy saying 4% rates at the end of this year, right?
Yes.
Okay. I love that.
flat 4 or 4.5?
4.75.
4.75.
Okay. That's the end of the reel right
That's
there.
a very firm number. I like it.
Okay.
Confidence
Are we
right
betting
there.
anything on that?
What do you want to bet?
I can't. I'm already losing my mustache.
He wins bets. You have yet to win a bet.
I still haven't received the.
Yeah, where's the booze?
Yeah.
Hold it, time out. I won the best bet of them all, which was marrying Mrs. Smith. So,
Oh, there you go.
So,
There you go. That's his
anything
wife
after
free.
that is
Got
down.
it.
Yeah.
Do I owe you booze?
No, you don't. Kevin Yancey
And Kevin Higgins.
and
Yeah.
Kevin Higgins
Both owe you
Yeah.
booze.
You could have
Yeah.
told me yes, and I would have got you
Yeah.
some. So.
Yeah.
So we were having this watt-to-watt conversation, Jonas Smith and I, my wife and I, this morning on what it is, and I really believe we're back. Normality has settled in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Expectations have settled in. People have.
So I think there's I think you've got buyers who think that, again, that there's blood in the streets still, and kind of are have some not great expectations. And part of what we're seeing for days on market is we've got some sellers who think that it's still the hottest game in town, and they have unrealistic expectations.
But those are in micro locations.
I think they're in micro locations, but I also think too, and I talked about this the last time, it's the expectation that you set going in.
Sure.
So that way an agent's not going in just to get a sale versus you're going in with setting the stage for this seller, so that way it's not a pitfall when they're like, why is my house still on the market, and it's 30 days later or 32 days later.
That's because you priced it right?
And the trusted
Right.
advisor, that's what it's all about, versus just saying, I'll do whatever you say to take the listing,
Exactly.
and then go, I don't,
Yeah.
well, we talked about this, and, I told you it wasn't going to work.
Who's
And
on the other side?
And apologizing your way through the transaction.
Yes.
I love you, man.
I know. He always says,
In case
who's
I've
on the
never
other
told
side
you.
matters.
I've never told you this live. I love you.
There you go. He says the listing agent and who's on the other side of the deal matters very much in this market.
More than ever.
I think that's true, because it can
That's
make
not popular amongst.
Yeah, it's not. It
Yeah.
can make or break a transaction. I think for me, a lot of what I'm experiencing right now with some of the listings that I have under contract are, agents that were licensed during the pandemic.
There you
And
go.
now they're truly having to negotiate through a
I
transaction.
don't know how to do it.
And they don't know how to do it. I love you guys. I'm so sorry. But
But you helped them. You guided them.
yes,
right? Yeah.
yes. And the thing is, thankfully, they have an agent. I can remember myself being in those shoes and being new. So I'm walking them through the process like, you're not requesting this. Well, you can't ask for this later because they didn't request. And now they're coming back to me saying, hey, I want a septic inspection. I'm like, we're already ratified. You didn't ask for one. And it's because they themselves have time now to learn. And so, I think it does matter who's on the other side to make the transaction work.
Well, as anybody who's watched the show or listened to the show knows, my 6, right? It's location, price, features, condition, timing. Is the
Right.
timing right? And who's on the other side matters. And you've got to. I'd imagine. Did you say you had 6 you put on the list and put on
7
the
and 6 are under.
right?
You are
Yeah.
crushing it. She's stacking paper right now.
But with some of those, it was having to revisit the conversation because some of those listings, the mindset was the pandemic market. And I'm
Right.
like, look, I can represent you and I want to work for you. I just don't want to say yes to everything that you want because you're then going to make the phone call. It's 90 days in and my house is still sitting on the market.
And who are they going to blame for that?
There you go.
That's
So,
exactly.
just having to have a little bit more of a realistic expectation.
If you can tag Michael Guthrie, I learned this
Tag him
from
right now.
Michael Guthrie, this term many years ago, and I use it on a regular basis. I'd rather disappoint you now than disappoint you 90 days
I like it.
later from now, right?
Yeah.
So, I'd rather have this frank conversation.
And I've learned that myself by just giving someone, I didn't know
Sure.
that
I
false
saved that phrase
expectation.
from my personal relationship.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I had that conversation with my wife this morning over breakfast. She's getting a lot of props, and questions are coming in fast and furious right here. Aaron,
You know I wasn't talking about my personal.
Aaron Simmons is watching the program. He says, first, Aaron Simmons says, tell Japrecia hello. And then he's
Hey.
got a question specifically for Scott. And Aaron says, question for Scott, can you talk about the effect of Wells leaving correspondent lending and the importance of having a local lender experienced in your local market? And he also says, this is a fantastic show, guys. Here's the third sizzle reel waiting to happen.
So this isn't the first time that Wells has backed away from bond purchasing, mortgage-backed securities. They originally did it in 2008, and what you're going to see is more servicers like PennyMac and Mr. Cooper and Planet Home Lending and a variety of these others that are going to grow their portfolios. Certainly, it's going to have an impact, but it's not unprecedented. And the main thing in having a local trusted advisor to work with from an agent perspective and a client perspective, when you're making the phone call to say, hey, it's me, they with people who already know who you are, it creates a level of trust in the process that is more likely to get your offers accepted. It is knowing that there's a human that people have worked with before, at least that they recognized or worked through a problem with. And it creates ultimately a better transaction than dealing with an online servicer, because those same people that I just mentioned, if they're carrying a mortgage for someone, are out there telling the client that we can help you in a purchase transaction. And as soon as there's a problem that the client created or that happened in their lives, there's no one to then get on the phone and
Right.
fix it. You're dealing with a call center, and you're dealing with a group of people that are no longer part of the solution, but part of making the problem worse.
There you go.
I
That's a
agree
good
with
mark
that.
for the third one. Well said. Very well said. You all set over there? Yeah. Okay. Just making sure. Julia Miles
This
giving
is
her props.
Bus Smith's Chops show today.
Julia Miles, you're doing a great job. Cheryl Long,
There you go,
hello.
there you go.
Gwendolyn Grayson, hello. Tammy Jenkins, hello. Neil Williamson, we'll get to your comment here in a matter of moments. Let's get to Grayson's comment for Pre. Is it a buyer's or seller's market right now, Japrecia?
Well, right now, I feel like it's still a market where buyers are going to be able to take advantage of the incentives that are in place with lenders, the programs that they've come up with to make, affording the loan a little bit easier with the rates. I think it's still trending towards a buyer's market, as I mentioned earlier, just because you can negotiate. Sellers want to negotiate with you because they want to sell their house, and it's no longer buyer, give me 5 offers and I can choose. So I feel like it's a buyer's market. Things are looking up for
Did you
them.
have multiple offers on your recent contracts?
One of them, it kind of went back and forth over a period of a week or so. But no, it wasn't multiple offers.
So,
Several showings, and again, the seller, they gave them list price. The negotiations were normal things, that you asked for in the market I cover. Where I primarily cover in Northern Virginia, there are 2 different animals.
yeah.
you look for two different things. You have two different lending programs in place a lot of times.
Well, that's why location matters. So
Yes.
I've kind of coined this term, micro markets matter, right? So within your marketplace where you work, there's some, maybe I would suspect there's some areas that are very much a seller's market.
Oh,
and
yeah.
There's some areas
Northern
that
Virginia, I feel like it is. I mean,
globally throughout or within, is there pockets?
certain pockets,
Yeah.
certain pockets, yes. Because I had a listing in Northern Virginia. We go to closing next week, and they had showings, but we didn't get anything right away.
Got it.
It was that particular side of 66, I guess. We didn't get
really
anything right away.
neighborhood dependent.
Yes.
Yeah.
So from your perspective, from your side of the house, from the lending side of the house, are we in a, where do you think the market is?
I think right now we are in a buyer's market. I think if rates continue to fall and we put too many people on the board, then all of a sudden we are immediately back into a seller's market.
Yeah.
Now, I think price point matters. I think condition of the property matters. I think how well it was priced by the agent matters. If you want multiple offers and it's priced right and the house is clean and it's in the right place, you are going to get multiple offers. If it is a property that is 30 years old, has a ton of deferred maintenance on it, the sellers have decided that they want all the money of the new house that was just built and sold down the street, you're not going to get. And they will come. There's tough conversations and reality to be found there.
You want a good conversation starter on a real estate talk show? You ask this question. Are we in a buyer's or seller's market? Because you disagree.
Yes and maybe no.
Here we
Yes,
go.
right. So it's very nuanced, right? I continue to get myself into trouble. So why stop now after 400 and something shows? This is why that who is on the other side matters. What trusted advisor is helping either that buyer or seller? This is my opinion, for what it's worth. But yeah, I'll tell a tale of two listings. We put two homes on the market. We'll leave specifics out for it. Put them on a thing, right location, right price, right features, right conditions. Hit the first four. We put it on. We were out in Seattle. We got multiple offers within 24 hours. Hit everything right. There's a home literally across the street. So it's pretty much the right location. It's the same house, the same features, but it was substantially higher than ours, and it's still sitting. So it's a matter
That is the bell that I cannot stop ringing.
It's a matter of getting those four things right.
Yep.
And that takes, you can't do this with this iPhone I'm holding in my hand. It takes a right? To sit down there and have a conversation at the kitchen table, dinner table, wherever you're having it, and convey to the other side, convey to the seller, hey, look, this is what needs to happen.
Right.
I'm a professional to do that. But so that's it. So it's a maybe yes, maybe no yes thing. If you are in the right location, right price, right features, right condition, it is very much so a seller's market.
Agreed.
If you're not, it becomes that particular home now becomes a buyer's market.
Yep.
Even assuming you can get people to look at it.
Yeah.
Chico Ferris giving you props. This question's come in from Kelsey, who is listening on Spotify. She says, Jerry, please ask Japrecia if she sees any softening at any levels or price points in the current market and what they are.
I do feel like it goes back to what Keith said, certain areas. I think that you are going to see some softening of the prices. I cover more of a rural area, and the conversations I've had the last few weeks, again, it goes back to expectations. Hey, we're entering into a spring market, but we're also rebounding from the rates going up. So how quickly do you want to sell? How much time do you have to try to get top dollar? So I think you are going to see a little bit softening of some of the prices. I'm anxious to see how April is going to look like.
Here's a follow-up question. Follow-up question for you guys. Aaron King, hello, in Scottsville. Vanessa Parkhill in Earlysville, hello. Should potential sellers wait 3 months or summertime as rates drop to list their house to chase more paper?
I don't think so.
You say list now because inventory is
I think
skimpy.
just the opposite.
You say list now because inventory is skimpy. Is that what you're saying?
Well, we're looking. Same week over week, we had 90. I put it away.
Yeah, I say
Okay.
list now because summer traditionally people are on vacation, and I have found that when I list properties in the summer, if it's in the right place, right price, and all of that is good, sweet, you get an offer. But I've also found that I can remember sellers contacting me saying, well, what do you think's going on? And people are on vacation. Graduations happen, vacations are happening, and people kind of tune back in towards the end of July.
So I think the reason we have 90 transactions or pendings this week versus 60 from a week ago, my wife and I were having this conversation.
No snow in January?
I think that's a potential reason, but I think somewhere around October, November, the buyers kind of just took a time out.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And they took a time out, and we've been talking about this forever. There is no spring market anymore. It hasn't been for years. I think the spring market sprung about a week ago. And I may be wrong, but I think that tempo is going to pick up. The question becomes, will the inventory keep up with it? And I think the answer to that is no.
Yeah.
And I was asked by Mayor Snook, actually, I think it was Snook. I can't remember which one of the councilors asked me that yesterday, and I went into this bit of a conversation. I said, look, if you think inventory is bad now, it's going to get worse because the clients we all helped that bought 2 or 3 years ago, they're not going to sell for a long time.
Well, it's funny you say that because I had a listing appointment yesterday. They bought 2 years ago, and they're going back to Florida.
I think there's a lot of people who bought 3 years ago.
You're talking 2019.
2019.
You're talking below the 3% insanity.
Or even going into the beginning.
Or higher than the 3% insanity.
Let's say they were the 3.75, 3.5. They were getting in then, but they were your starter home who
kid.
now has all of this equity.
Yeah.
So while, they've got two options, really. Can we rent this home, and is there an option for us to purchase and retain this? Or can we sell this home, take the equity, and buy something bigger? And I think that is what the American brain is built around. It's going to happen. I think the people who, from like that line where they got in as prices were starting to peak, so let's say 12 to 18 months ago, I think those people are going to have a more difficult time a year or 2 years from now than making that same leap if they were already locked in at those low rates.
But I think
for those
I think one of the things when you mention if you purchased in 2019, because 2 of my transactions that recently closed were sellers from 2019, but the problem they face is they had great rates, but now the rates are higher.
They lost
and the
purchasing
prices,
power.
Yeah, the prices are a little bit higher, so they're a little like shocked by, wait, this is what my mortgage could be. So
I definitely am seeing that, but at the same time, they've got, if we can go and have a conversation, all right, look, this is what rates are, but if the plan is, you know that you can don't use all of this money. Set some aside.
Right.
Here's 2.5% that you may need for closing costs to refinance, and then we're gonna at some point get you back closer to where your expectations are.
So I'm going to look at the Freddie Mac chart. The end of 18 was about 3.95%, and the end of 19 was hitting about 5.3, 5.4, somewhere in that range. But I recently had the same conversation with a client who we helped buy 2 years ago. There were some life changes that they want to sell and they want to move. When they bought 2 years ago, it was they had like a zero down kind of scenario, and they have not did the extra payment towards principal and all that kind of great. They built up a lot of equity, but it wasn't as much as it should have been, right? They should have been paying some of the principal off through that process. But I think you're going to see that NAR. We talk about NAR all the time. We're starting to see. We went from 5 to 7 years. Folks were staying at homes. Now it's 10. Depending on how you talk to some folks think longer than 10 years. And Neil, I'm sure Williamson's going to chime in on that. Back to our conversation with one of the city council, if you don't put more product in the ground,
right,
it's just inventory is just going to get worse and worse, and affordability is just going to keep on going.
Neil says you cannot build. He references Neil Williamson. He says you cannot build out to affordability, but you cannot gain affordability without building new product. And he also says under current mortgage rates, new affordable product can serve 80% annual median income buyers and renters and above. Subsidies serve 50% AMI and below. And then he talks about NGOs, land trusts, Habitat for Humanity, et cetera.
So I can speak to that because I chair a land trust, and to Neil's point, at today's current rates, because we've done 24 transactions in the last year and a half of brand new construction. The bottom line is if you can't help somebody at 80%, 60 to 80% AMI, they can't pay any more than $2,215.
And that doesn't exist here.
That doesn't exist.
Devil's advocate for the sake of a talk show. Strictly for the sake of a talk show, okay? If mortgage rates are going to drop Q3, Q4 to the fours, that's your prediction. You're saying mid fours to high fours.
I'll say, high fours to low fives.
Is that a good thing?
Well, my question is this, and then it's perfect segue to yours. You're talking about maybe close to a 2% drop in mortgage rates this year. People are going to have significantly more purchasing power later this year. To Pre's point, if you're buying, and also to Pre's point, if you're looking to sell, people having more purchasing power when rates drop 2%, that's potential bidding wars, and that's a buyer potentially getting more bang for their buck, more square feet, larger home, more land, whatever it may be. Are people better served to wait? And I know no one at this panel wants wait, because we like action, we like to make deals.
What's going on in your life? Does waiting
But it's
work
also
for
the
you?
best advice in certain cases to our client. That's what our ultimate job is. My daughter and son-in-law are moving into Richmond, and they were going to fly in, helping them buy a home there, and we had to have this conversation over last weekend. They wanted to come in February because they're moving in May, and let's find a house and buy. And they said, well, we're just going to wait till May. And I go, no,
Right.
you need to do this now.
Yes.
You think inventory's tight now, May is going to be even worse because there's so many people thinking that.
If you can go in, and like right now, I'm still seeing a lot of concessions. If you can go in and get concessions, and we talk about, it's not a 2% move right now.
Was it 6.3, 6.4?
Today, I bet you I'm pulling 5.9, 5.75,
Okay.
depending on credit situation today. If that's the case, then we're 1%.
I'm about to say, yeah.
Move from where we are right now. And if we can, let's say you want to do a 2-1 buy down and give yourself time to figure out whether or not you've got this, much room to run, you could be, potentially sub 4 at the moment. That's probably unlikely. You're probably going to be right. You're probably going to be right
Low
at 4%.
fours.
Yeah. Low fours in that range. And but then with a real plan to refinance.
So let's take a moment and an opportunity to re-explain the 2-1 buy down. I get that question all the time. It's a shout out to Ray Cadell. He brought this up some time ago on the show. This is a 1980s way of dealing with high interest rates that's been redusted off and brought back to the market.
So you're using the seller's funds to pay down the prepaid interest of the loan for the first 2 years. If you have limited money for closing costs and you can go FHA, you can get a full 6% from the seller in concessions that would pay your closing cost and pay down the interest for the first 2 years of the loan. So at today's rate, let's say you were at 6.25%, you would be 4.25% for the first year, you'd be 5.25% for the second year, and you'd be 6.25% in perpetuity if you could not refinance out of it. That is what you would look at. If it's a conventional loan and you're only getting 3% in concessions, then you'd be paying your own closing cost, and then the same scenario from 6.25 to 4.25 for the first year, 5.25 for the second year, and 6.25 in perpetuity if you were not to refinance.
And there's one real important portion of that. If I refi him within a year, what happens?
If a year or within any time that prepaid interest is being used, so let's say it was 7 months, you would have then another 17 months out of that 24 months of the prepaid interest that you would be refunded when that refinance takes place. So once you refi, the servicer that is paid out their money, they owe you the difference for that prepaid interest that was not being used during the process.
It's now a good time to buy, Pri?
Yes.
Why
Negotiations. You can still negotiate, and I've had several buyers do that exact same thing.
A 2-1 buy down. So the reason I asked that is I kind of wanted to segue into something. So we're talking to buyers.
I have sellers that are planning to do the same thing because they'll have the extra equity from their proceeds to be able to put it towards it.
Now, if a seller was telling me in their next purchase that they wanted to buy down the rate, I would tell them, no, set that money aside, because them paying down the rate isn't the same thing as buying down prepaid interest, and what they would end up, they're not going to get that money back.
Well, I think some of them are considering doing that because prices of houses have gone up. So in order to qualify for what it is that they want to do, they're already having to put a larger down payment to make the debt to income work. And then they're shocked by what the payment is versus what they've had in the past, because they have like a 3 or a 4, and where rates are now, they kind of don't want that either. So they're using that money to get it down and then be manageable and not go into it with shock.
So there's a magic point when this 2-1 buy down is just going to go away because the market has adjusted itself. So if you're right, we're going to hit 4 something, and we're right.
That'd be awesome.
I love it.
Yeah, I would love that, Scott.
Yeah.
I hope your crystal ball's right, dude.
Yeah.
We're right that means buyers are going to be coming back into it. Our inventory isn't going to grow. The negotiations from the buyer's perspective to the seller is going to go away. You're not going to be able to get that done. This is why all my buyers right now said right now is the perfect time to buy.
Yeah, absolutely.
You could not get any better time to buy because you've got this ability, if it's in the right location, right features, right conditions, and right timing. That's why I use the word timing. Right now is the right time to go ahead and do that. As interest rates drop, that whole negotiation ability is going to go out.
It changes things. It changes.
As the interest rates drop, you may see the new construction pick up again, which we certainly hope it does.
Probably already signaled by the builder sentiment.
The builder sentiment, absolutely right.
But on top of that, I'm still big proponent, huge. If you are someone who's in a position to go out and purchase a distressed property and use a 203K loan to make the improvements that you'd like to do it. I've spent the last 6 months meeting with 203 HUD consultants from, one of them is Woody Finchum's brother down in the Chesapeake area, who actually comes all the way up through Richmond and even in Charlottesville. And then I've got people from Northern Virginia all the way down through Charlottesville as well. So these are, from an agent perspective, these are reliable human beings who you can communicate with post-closing after I'm no longer part of the process, and that's the main reason I've been doing it, is to make sure that once that handoff is complete, it's not like, oh my gosh, this was such a headache for everyone involved.
Right.
I've got the right people to be working with, and along with that, I've got contractors that from here down through King George and Richmond, Charlottesville, and trying to keep a select group of people that I can refer out to make this not only good for you, but good for the client as well.
This is why use local,
Yes.
trusted advisors
Yes.
matter. I don't know about you, but myself, and jump in, please, if you do, I can't tell you how many post-closings I get. I'm going to call it a Rolodex because that's how old I am, right? For names in my Rolodex are trusted advisors to do plumbing work and so forth. So do you get those after the?
I do. I just create a toolbox. My assistant and I are always adding and taking away just based on client feedback, because if I refer you someone and then they have a bad experience, not once but twice, I remove them and then we shop for someone else. And I think it's important. It's just a part of good customer service. That you just,
trusted advisors matter. You will not get that with a .com lender.
We need to talk about the increase in real estate assessments and carrying costs for managing some of these properties or owning some of these properties. Albemarle County set a record this year with average assessments up 13.64% in 2022. Last year they were up 8.4%. So in 2 years, assessments in Albemarle County have jumped 22%, over 22%. In Fluvanna, property values are up 13% for 2023. Louisa County will come out later this spring. Sean Tubbs is doing great reporting on this. In Charlottesville City, in 2022, assessments were up 12%. The new figures for this year are coming out soon. So eventually we got to figure out how the carrying costs tied with jurisdictional overhead is going to impact this market. I mean, you take Albemarle County alone, Scott and Pre, why don't you start Pre here? I know Albemarle County is not your specialty, but this applies to all jurisdictions here. 22% jump in real estate assessments for Albemarle County. That's massive. That's
yeah,
expensive.
That's scary. Yeah, because that matters. And especially in a rural area like what I cover, Culpeper, Madison, Orange, where the income levels are not the same as your Charlottesville or Northern Virginia. So sometimes it can come down to the debt to income ratio working based on what taxes are in that jurisdiction.
And when you've got buyers who've just recently purchased going, why is my payment going up?
And I've had that phone call. I've had a couple of those calls.
The real impact, and actually, depending on how much time I'm allotted today in Fluvanna County, the fixed income citizen is going to be hugely impacted by,
Huge.
by this.
Yeah.
And we're blessed. We're having this conversation with my mother and father who are in their mid-80s, that we're fortunate enough that we can figure out a place in our home for mom and dad. But that we went out for dinner on Sunday, celebrate my birthday, and that was really the topic of discussion is gas is going up, our electric bill just went through the roof on that. Water and sewer is going through the roof. Groceries are going through the roof, and now their real estate tax is going to go, and they're on a fixed income.
How do you guys feel about this, though? I believe all jurisdictions have it, but at a certain age, you can have that waived, but every jurisdiction is different. If that senior citizen goes to sell that home, some may have to pay back 1 year or 2 years retro of those taxes, but it does
It's
soften it.
extremely jurisdictional
Yeah.
focused, but typically most of the jurisdictions have a maximum amount of equity you can have. And if you own a home, generally you go past that, right?
You do.
Yeah.
You do.
So
I've had a couple of clients, sellers, and this is how, I learned this. Their homes had been paid off for some time. And
Yeah.
so, of course, that's what they did was the waiver. And when title went to find out, it was just 1 or 2 years
Got it.
that they owed taxes.
it's much like land use taxes and stuff like that.
But
do
it
you
was
think?
easier for them while they owned.
Also,
they're not
if
having
you're
to
a
do
disabled veteran in most jurisdictions,
Yes.
you can have your taxes waived as well.
I can assure you that it has to be a high percentage. I believe it's between 80 and 100%. Only reason I know is I'm at 25%, and they laughed at me.
Gotcha.
Most people who know me think I should be 100%, but for very different reasons.
So are Pop and your mom moving in?
No, so then that's what you have with the 80-something that they're a little bit stubborn. Could be they're Smiths too. That could be a bit of being stubborn. But it went from an absolute no to we're actually thinking about how this would
Right.
work at this point. It's going to take a while because they want to. Look, we're all independent. You want to be independent, and living with your son and daughter-in-law lacks a little bit of independence. So,
Yeah.
but we're fortunate we're able to do it. A lot of families can't, and if you don't fit into these boxes, right, as Scott has said, or the certain age and income end of it, it's a difficult thing, right?
Yes, it is.
Daniel McDougall says, make sure you guys highlight the cost of land is an issue right now. It's very expensive around here. He's in the mortgage business. Daniel McDougall, he's a loan officer. Sharonda Monet, is that right? She says she's giving you props. She says she's seeing exactly what Pri is talking about in the Chesapeake area right now. Chico Ferris giving you some props as we speak as well. Questions are coming in. Bill McChesney, welcome to the program. This question's come in for Pri specifically. Jerry, you talk about the luxury market or the jumbo market often on the show with Scott and Keith. Ask that question to your guest, Japrecia, if you could. How is the jumbo market, the luxury market, doing in the territory she covers?
So that territory is probably more so Northern Virginia, where that would be utilized the most. And I'm not too hands-on with that on a consistent basis to really give that feedback. It's more the conventional, not anything at that price point.
Got it. Scott, what are you seeing with that space?
So in Culpeper, we live in an interesting area where we
Yes.
fit the Northern Virginia corridor, which just moved conforming loan limits up to $1 million. So that kind of changes some of the, depending on your specific situation, what actually is going to end up as jumbo. So that, I would say, has been, since those changes have taken place, the biggest I don't think we've done anything personally at a branch level over 850 in the last 90 days or so.
Yeah.
That's the question I was going to ask. How many
Just not seeing it enough.
$800,000,
then, I guess.
$900,000
Yeah.
mortgages? But
Yeah.
a lot of those luxury markets.
And I think part of that has to do, so when rates when we were quoting in the 7s or even high 6s, I think people pumped the brakes, at least from what I saw, in those areas on those $1 million purchases.
Well, a lot of those $1 million purchases also are a huge percentage cash too.
Yeah.
Yes,
I know that's been
agree.
our experience.
When I've gone back to look at some of those closed transactions and you're looking at the financing piece of it, you are seeing cash there.
That's exactly right. So I think the volume is going to decrease a little bit. Again, I think it's mostly an inventory scenario. There's just the people that may own those homes really don't have to move typically, so they stay put to that point.
Keith Smith, your take for what's going to happen in the spring?
So I think the spring is now. So that's the answer. I think the spring sprung. We'll see next week when we do the show. We'll look at week over weeks again on it. But if this trend continues that we're higher, because somebody taught me who sits across the table how to take a picture and date it and all that stuff for a 60-year-old dude.
Good job, Keith.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. I can be taught new tricks. And so I'm going to kind of take a look at that. But if that trend continues, right, that there's just this trend of more going into pending versus coming on the market, it's just going to get tighter and tighter and tighter.
Yeah.
What do you think, Scott?
I mean, that's exactly what every single meeting, conversation, phone update has been. I promise you don't want rates to drop as quickly as you think.
Well,
you
that's
do.
why I said earlier, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, I mean, I think as they fall, it's going to help inventory because it's going to. I think once we break 6%, we're quote regularly in the 5s. The mental leap that someone has to take in order to put the house on the market to move into the next one becomes much easier. But at the same time, we also take a large percentage of buyers and put them back on the board for a limited amount of inventory and create this multiple offer situation that ran us into some of the struggles that we dealt with that got us here.
It's a good take. Aaron Simmons. Aaron, Aaron's got to be in the business, right?
Yeah,
Is
he's
he
a-
an LO?
he's a mortgage lender.
Yeah. Okay. I guess LO is not the preferred nomenclature anymore. You
Mortgage
changed
advisor.
that. Okay, mortgage advisor. So is it MA? Is that what I'm saying now?
We can do LOMA.
Okay,
Whatever
okay.
you have.
Because you said people didn't know what an
LMAO.
LO was.
I don't care. Like, whatever you got to do.
Aaron Simmons says 900,000 at 3% is a lot different than 6%. I closed one in November, but the buyers are few and far between unless large down payments or cash, like
exactly
Scott and Keith just stated on the show. And he loves the MA moniker. He says, let's go with mortgage advisor. Aaron Simmons says. So he's backing up what you guys are saying, that once rates got so high, people started pumping the brakes on activity and action in the luxury and jumbo market. That's what he's saying.
Albemarle County, $1 million and up. There's 48 homes on the market. Median list price is 1.675. 40 went pending. And then I just took a look at how much sold million up Albemarle County in 2022. So it was 193 homes sold, and I just scrolled to the bottom of the spreadsheet. Median sales price was 1.3, 5 days on market, 4 bedrooms, 4.5 bath, roughly 5,000 square feet on that, running about $304 a square foot on that end of it. While others chat, I'm just curious, check out what 2021 looks like versus that particular number.
So do we see that picking up as rates fall? That's what we're saying?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what we're saying right there. It was a good question, and thank you for directing the show in that manner. All right, so so what's the counsel you're offering to clients and meetings here, first-time meetings with folks over the next, say, 45 to 90 days of them working with you?
Buyers or sellers?
Say both. Start with buyers first.
If we're looking at buyers, I always like to make sure I'm coming from a place of understanding how ready they are, how much do they know first. If they're a complete version to purchasing, then we're talking about what the next step's going to look like with Scott, so they're not fearful of that. And then from there, we're talking about what the wish list is going to look like. And then we're setting the expectations about the wish list versus what Scott's going to tell you. And then we go from there if it's a buyer. If it's a seller, we're having an expectation around time. So I have to have a conversation today with a listing appointment I went to yesterday. So one of the things we're going to talk about or spend most of our time on is days on market. So if you're a seller entering to this market, because it is a little tricky because rates might do a thing as we continue to go. Spring has already sprung, so you have a lot of sellers that are ahead. I had quite a few that were already having the conversations in November. So they said January 1, I want this, this, and this. So if you're a seller entering the market, then we're really talking about days on market. And then we're talking about the expectation you have after that. Because if you're looking to purchase again, how realistic are the expectations? If you're just unsure, well, how quickly can we get the house sold? So conversations very different, but more expectation setting with the seller as opposed to the buyer. I think a buyer, they're moldable. If you put it in front of them right away, and they're just teachable if they come in with the right mindset. With the seller, it's a little bit more emotional. So you do have to spend more time with the seller because they feel like they've put a lot into the property, but the market's going to tell you something totally different.
Great take right there. We'll give her props.
Ouch.
I feel like I'm in the, did you say it was a BMW or a Mercedes last time? No, you said
BMW.
you're a BMW now, but you're a Mercedes
Yes.
girl. That's what the memory says. I feel like I'm in the car with Pri right now. Have you seen her talks? They're fantastic. I love her,
I
her
have,
talks.
And the
Since
fact,
we became friends, I'm watching one right now while interviewing you. It's good. And you got graphics. This is good. I like it, Pri.
I love the fact that you wrap it around DOMs, days on market. And
She knows what's up.
And that's the
Pitfall. I set myself up for failure when I first started, not focusing on that enough.
Sure.
When I became an agent, and so the phone call was coming like, it's been 2 months or it's been a month.
So in your
I learned.
marketplace, when does it start hitting that stale number, right? So if you if it's on the market for 5 or 7 or 10 days, and I can't believe I'm saying these as long time, right?
Right.
30 days stale in your market?
In the rural area right now, my expectation is no, it's not. If we agreed and you're waiting for a buyer, it's more of getting the right buyer to come along. It doesn't scare me at 30 days. And in fact, I tell my sellers, I really don't want to have a conversation about price until we've hit 30 days. I don't want to revisit the price point again, especially if
Put your client at a disadvantage.
it really does. And it also, too, lets me know from the first conversation how antsy they're going to be and why. Because at the end of 2 weeks, they're already calling me if they're super antsy. And I have to say, we're not going to talk about price for at least 30 days. We need to see what the market's going to tell us. Are you going to have showings or not? If you don't have showings, then your price was not right.
I use this comment all the time with listing showings. We only have one opportunity to get a first impression.
Exactly.
Right. There is no second impression.
Yep,
If
and
we-
buyers are smart. They pay attention to the days on market. And I tell my sellers, if I'm representing a buyer, I'm paying attention to the days on market. I'm paying attention to how many times you've dropped the price. I'm paying attention to like the transaction history of this property. And then that's how we're going to present our offer.
And I get phone calls from buyers who ask questions, and my response is, well, have you talked to your agent? But how many days has it been on market? And because
Yeah.
that tells me, okay, that I can have a call with the agent and go, all right, look, do we want, if we're trying to ask for something, we know, all right, look, it's been on for 2 days. We may not get what we're looking for here, but if it's been on for 21 days, it's like, buckle up, let's go.
Yeah.
We're in a
And-
better negotiating position.
but to Pri's point, as far as buyers versus sellers, and them being manageable, so the difference is with a buyer can go out and learn a lesson in a weekend. They can
yeah.
go
Strike
out.
out.
They can
Yeah.
go lowball a bunch of people and realize
I like
and get
that,
their
yes.
feelings hurt and and then
But they didn't blow that first impression.
Right. But then they can still go out, but
And
the
buy a
seller,
house.
but the seller has their house to learn their lessons on,
Yeah.
and
That's a
they
good call.
have much more investment. So that really shifts the dynamic of how people learn. And now certainly there are buyers out there who may not learn a lesson the first, second, or fifth time, but at the same time, like eventually they're gonna,
That's why who's on the other side matters
Right.
so much.
That's a great take, Scott.
Yeah.
Bill, thanks for the question, $1 million and up. I just want, everybody was chatting. I ran some quick numbers, $1 million and up, Albemarle County. So 2021, there was 162 units sold at $1 million plus, 20 days on market. Remember that number. Median sales price was 1.25. 2022 went up to 193, so we increased year over year. Dropped days on market 5. So we went from 20 days on market in 2021 to end of 2020. In 2021, the interest rates was pretty low, to 2022, and the price went up to 1.35 million. So, I think that's kind of indicative that all markets are kind of moving. I think the one that's not moving, which we need to talk about, is that entry level, right? So let's talk about that. How is that entry level market doing for you, Pri?
Are you talking first-time home buyers?
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. It's still present. Again, it's the area. I cover a lot in Culpeper. Culpeper is expensive.
Sure.
It's becoming expensive, but would you say it is expensive, Scott?
That's relative, right?
This is a little bit perspective. What's expensive to you versus what's expensive to me, but it's definitely more expensive than it was.
Yes, and so I think that to your question, it's the last few years. It's been a challenge for that entry level to live in Culpeper. Even the Madison area, which connects to Culpeper, anything past Culpeper North, you have to have the right pay scale to be able to afford it. And I think what helps soften the blow a little bit for entry level is the programs, the down payment programs. They're super important.
Well, let's talk about that, because out in the rural area, you have more tools available.
Yes, you do.
Than that.
So you did.
Oh,
And this affordability problem is part of the problem. You see, the higher the price gets, the more difficult it is to fit buyers into a USDA product.
Absolutely.
Being that they can't exceed 28% of housing expense alone. So as that number goes up, that pushes that up, and then it has income limits strapped to the county as well. So if they can only make this much money, but then the cost of the house has gotten to be 35% for what that income relates to, it makes it virtually impossible for them to fit that box.
A lot of the clients I've had that have had that challenge, they're shopping at a price point beyond what an entry-level first-time home buyer would look at. I feel like the struggle is $300,000 and under for like that Culpeper, Madison.
But that's everywhere.
It's gone.
Yeah, and so I feel like they are the ones that are more vulnerable to not being able to get an offer accepted or being able to ever find a house that is at least somewhat move-in ready without having to either take the guts of the house out, 2 or 3K.
But then we get back into the same problem, but with 2 or 3K, then we're saying, okay, well,
it's
unless
3%.
we're trying, well, I don't mean that. I mean, after the expense of the renovation, all of a sudden the loan amount may go to $350 or $375 and be north of what their target price point really is. Now, I've got a 100% FHA product that is not Virginia housing, so it allows them to go to, and there's really no overlays. So they can go to 160% of area median income, meaning that they can make a lot of money and still qualify for this. And one of the biggest problems that we're facing as a nation right now is a lower amount of savings and a higher amount of debt.
Yes.
So they can go to the FHA maximum of 55% debt to income, and you don't have to be a first-time home buyer to use it. So it helps a lot of people, if they're selling a house and then they can whether they're paying off debt or whatever it is, get into the market or take their next step.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about bounce back to that for a second. a specific market, Lake Monticello, right? Lake Monticello, out in Fluvanna County, 44% of Fluvanna County's households or rooftops are there. Those products are applicable to Lake Monticello, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Most people think because it's kind of an urban
USDA
environment.
is applicable to all of Culpeper County, and so that's including townhomes and everything. So
It's even you can use it in Northern Virginia. You just have to be on the right side of 66, the right
Yeah.
side of it. Certain neighborhoods you can still use it.
So Jerry and Judah have been doing a great job for Real Talk with Keith Smith website. We're posting reports that are on it, and I'm reading from one from Fluvanna County. Just to put it in perspective, in 2017, apologize, the median sales price was $195, and 22 is $318. That's a $123,000 difference. That's a 39% increase between 17 and 22. And if you go ahead and look at what's active on there, we're ridiculously low, like 10 or 11 or 12 units, and you can't even find anything that's $318,000 right now. So again, back to Neil Williamson's comment, and the Fluvanna County's not going to like this, and if they hear this today, inventory matters, right?
Oh yeah.
It's only one part of the equation, but if we don't start increasing inventory, that delta is just going to keep on growing.
I'm not sure the political capital's there to increase inventory.
I can assure you it's not.
It's not certainly to expand the growth area or the development area in Albemarle County. And and the small builder, I mean, and one thing we're not highlighting is the small builder is not building right now.
Yeah, I do agree.
The small builders put the brakes on things.
The small, yes and no. As I mentioned
small
before,
builders having a hard time finding lots.
Yes.
And labor.
Yes.
And labor.
Yeah.
I mean, that's to McDougal's point, the loan officer. I mean, you have, I think 3 of them have commented so far, the cost of the land is the issue, is what he's saying.
And as we learned from Woody Fincham on Monday, sometimes these assessments don't get the land portion of it right. But you're 100% right. Now I happen to have a couple of cash custom builder clients that own the land already, and I'll frankly tell you, the conversations I'm having with builders, we're looking at 2024 deliveries at this point. Mainly because they take some months and months to get building permits. That's the real reason that's delayed on it. But on the small production folks, or even the larger production folks, I know this world well, there's just a lack of inventory. Greene County is going to start pushing some lots out. So keep an eye.
Greene County's got what? Is it Ryan Holmes?
Well, there's multiple
Okay.
folks out there. Stanley Martin Homes is doing it. Ryan Holmes, Southern Development's doing a project out there, but within the pipeline, there's about 2,000 lots about ready to come on. So keep a close eye on Greene County. I think they are going to be the next.
Well, I'm noticing some of the small builders in some of the areas that I cover, they're expanding out. So they're probably going to end up having to come to places like Greene or Louisa and purchase more of their lots.
Well, they're no different than the buyer,
Yeah.
right? The buyers go into where the product is that they can buy. The builder developers doing the same thing. Where can I go to go ahead and do that? And the problem on the developer side of it is it takes 6 years to get something approved,
Yeah.
and the market will surely change multiple times.
Neil Williamson shares a link to the Free Enterprise Forum on Albemarle Needs Reality-Based Planning, a piece of content that he created this month on the 3rd of January that's on the Free Enterprise Forum website. Neil, thank you for sharing that, the king of content himself. All right, how about some closing thoughts from the panel here? What do you make of the what, Keith? I like the phrase what the what. I like the post you
I
did
almost did what TF,
I
but
know.
I decided not to do that.
I like the post you did on your Facebook. I like the
Thank you.
engagement you were getting.
Thank you. I'm learning. It's only taken a few years.
Put
here.
the what in perspective and then give your take on it.
Yeah, so I threw that more out there for the other pros.
You didn't really answer it
And
yet.
chime in. Excuse me?
You didn't really answer
I did that
it.
on
Yeah.
purpose.
Okay. I know you did.
I did
know
that
you
on purpose because I wanted to see what the folks that were on the post and the conversation we're going to have here. I'm not surprised by what. These numbers don't surprise me because I've been kind of expecting it. We've been calling that the spring market is going to spring now. And I think that's what's going on. I think what's going on is I think buyers have been on the sidelines for a while. I think by our conversation earlier, your applications are picking up, your business is picking up. I know ours is picking up. I'm sure Pre's picking up a little bit on that end of it. But these buyers are coming in, and all I can say is what to what, and get a trusted advisor and help you navigate that.
Well
Did
said.
I do all right?
That was great. That was excellent. Good job, Keith.
There's a phrase.
Totally won that, by the way.
That was good.
There's an acronym I used to like to use in the military, which is WAFWOT. That's WAFWOT. You can translate that.
Welcome.
Yeah. But
Know it well.
I think now is, as always, a time that trusted advisors are your most important piece of the puzzle. And as things move forward, we're going to see different types of shifts in the market. So if rates do decrease, it's going to become more challenging for the buyer. But at the moment, if you can get in now, it gives you a great opportunity to get concessions from the seller, possibly depending upon the property, or go in and make an offer where you're not competing against quite as many people. So there's a ton of opportunity to be had if you are in the position to go and act now.
I like it.
Well done. Show's yours. Anywhere you want to go?
Pre just wants to remain optimistic and happy. So hearing 4% by the end of the year makes me happy.
It made you very happy.
Yes, spring has sprung
But
already.
does
Makes
it
me
really,
happy.
Pre? So if it hits
But
4%,
in the moment, Pre likes to be
Got
happy.
it,
I
got
love
So-
when Pre talks to the third person.
So
Got it.
hearing that 4% could happen makes me happy from the buyer perspective, because I want a buyer to win and I want a seller to win.
Sure.
And right now I feel like the seller's time. I have quite a few sellers I'm working with, so it's what right now I'm hearing and seeing what I need to see and hear, and I'm all about planning. So as long as I'm educating the buyer and the seller on what's happening today and what we're predicting, and staying in touch with Scott's and Keith's and coming here with you guys, I just take it day by day. And I think everything that you've shared, buyers need to get ready right now. And sellers, it's happening for you right now. They've been on the sideline. I think there's a lot of sellers that have been on the sideline since like August or September of last year, and they know they missed the boat in getting everything that they wanted. So if you're smart, I would go ahead and look at the opportunity now based on whatever life-changing event is happening, and consider listing right now.
Well said.
Pre, you're welcome anytime.
Yeah, she's
back.
a rock star.
You definitively
guys.
raised the face value of everybody here. At the
and you
table.
have a significant following on social media. I'm like watching the engagement here. You have
Thanks,
quite
guys.
a large network. Julia Miles, for example, says, "Thank you, Pre, and everyone on this panel for this significant education in real estate."
great,
I mean, I think you could play the last hour and call it 90 minutes as kind of like a who, what, when, where, why of today's market.
Yes.
So anyone on the fence about buying or selling, watch the last 90 minutes of this show, and I think you get a good feel for what's transpiring. And that's the game plan for what we're trying to do here. We're trying to entertain, educate, enlighten, and we do it in this long-form content manner that's on social media and all the platforms for you to participate in. That's the
Yes.
show. I thought today's show was dynamite.
It was. Make sure you come out. Scott and I are doing a workshop March 25th.
Ooh.
It's a Saturday in Culpeper. Starts at 11 o'clock. So if you want any of Scott's information that he shared today, you can have one-on-one time with him. Spaces are limited, so it is one-on-one. So definitely mark that in your calendar.
I like it.
Love it.
Love it. This was great.
You know what?
is great.
These shows are one of my favorite. I do like the Batman and Robin shows. I must admit of that. But I actually learned a ton from you today, Pre. So thank you
Oh,
so
she's
much.
a rock star.
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you for taking the time
Yes.
to come.
Scott
Appreciate
invited.
you.
Yes.
Scott Morris, guys, Ross Mortgage, Keith Smith, Yes Realty Partners, Japrecia Clark, Ness Realty. Check out her segment. How often does it air? It's pretty regular.
It is.
The
I try
Car
to,
with Pri?
In the car with Pri. I try
Yeah.
to do it at least once a week. I committed to twice a week
It's
in
good.
2023. So we'll see.
You do a lot of driving.
Is there like singing involved in this?
No,
I'll
she,
sing to my daughter jingles to Jordan. Yeah,
she offers takes in like
Yeah.
5-6 minute formats.
Yeah.
They're fantastic. You're in the car a lot.
a lot.
Yeah.
And I was talking to myself a lot.
So
And
you're like, I might
that's-
as well
Yeah,
optimize.
just
Yes.
record this.
That's good.
Yes.
What do you have? How's the phone set up? Is it on a tripod?
However, I can figure it out
Okay,
because I've
okay.
changed out the tripod a couple times and they
So it's
break and they
resting
don't
against
fit.
the coffee mug?
sometimes,
Yeah.
or the wallet or the sunglass case, and then I'll have one in the window, and I'm like, oh, you're messing up my whole vibe here, so I take it down, and yeah.
I love it.
But the
I
problem
absolutely
when I
love
talk to myself, people get nervous.
Yeah.
So
it. And he does it often.
I do it often. I create new words. It's fun.
We would
I do
be,
that. I like
you
that. It's
do.
okay.
Keithisms, right?
Keithisms, yeah, right.
Keithisms.
Smithisms.
With Smithisms.
It's really a Smith thing.
I know. We would be remiss not to highlight Judah Wickower. He's the director of the show. A&V, audio and visual, is tied to him, so we give him props. For Keith, Scott, and Pri, my name is Jerry Miller. The I Love Siebel show is up in approximately 59 minutes. Thank you
Yay.
kindly for joining us. So long, everybody. That was awesome, guys.
Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. You guys are great.
Okay, hit the restroom. I'll be right back.